Here come the quota queens. Good evening and welcome back. So Radio 2 boss Lewis Carnie quits as a revamped station loses 450,000 listeners just a year after star DJ Chris Evans left and was replaced by Zoe Ball. So this might be a overlooked consequence of any quota queens. Females who are brought in simply to fulfill criteria based on their sex and not based on any performance whatsoever. But in this case, yes, sure, Zobel did have reason to get a position, but primarily they wanted to choose a woman, and so they would only choose the best of the women, evidently. And the thing with this is, of course, when the organisation starts to crumble, anybody with any integrity decides to also leave because they know that they're better than this, and they would rather not have such poor performance reflected on their CV, and therefore they wish to leave the sinking ship before they drown. And that is what Lewis Carnie has decided to do, seeing as the male members were told, would you like to have a pay cut? Because now that the women have said that they have to have equal pay for unequal work, you're going to have to volunteer to have a pay cut, as we can't dock your pay based on gender, as that is actually illegal. So they said, okay, or they left. But the ones who did say okay decided to look for another job immediately, and they found one not soon afterwards, because let's be honest, they were being paid that much for a reason, and therefore when they were being paid below market value, it wasn't difficult for them to find another job. Chris Evans and Gary Lineker are prime examples of this from the BBC. And seeing as Lewis Carnie oversaw this, he realised, shit, well, this isn't working out at all well, I need to find another job as well, otherwise it's going to look poor on me. And so he has decided to step down, which is brilliant, of course, for the BBC, because now they can appoint a female instead of a male, which will please them tremendously, and it will, of course, mean that they plummet even more. The downside, of course, is that there will be so many capable women, and I'm sure there are women who would be able to suffice in the managerial role and capability. However, because they're looking for the correct politics and not the correct CV, not the correct skills that are appropriate for the business, they won't be able to find the correct woman. And this is also why, of course, the Conservatives have had 2 female leaders and Labour have had none at all. Because if you're looking for the best person for the job, then a woman will sometimes be the best person for the job, and they will then take that job, and they will do very well with it because they are the best person for the job. Whereas if you just appoint somebody based on their sex, then it is highly unlikely that they're going to be the best person for the job. And therefore, in this instance, Lewis Carnie, who was deemed to be the best person for the job at the time, will leave. And so you'll have more and more of these top positions filled up by women as the BBC slowly goes under, and this will reflect very poorly on women as a whole, as they were just appointed to their position because they were females with holes. Yes, let's not bring in the trans community here. So, given that the BBC is failing, as we all know, and now there are going to be more women instead of men, it's going to reflect poorly on them, let's find this particular case study of one of their managerial roles, one where it really doesn't matter about female, it's not even in the public eye. And yes, of course, we can mention their intern position, which was fine as long as you weren't a straight white male, that they weren't looking for a straight white male, even though it wasn't in a customer-facing role whatsoever. In this particular instance, they say that the boss of Radio 2 has announced he is stepping down a week after figures show that the station has lost hundreds of thousands of listeners on the previous year. Lewis Carnie, who has been responsible for a controversial revamp of the station's schedules in recent years, yesterday said he was leaving Radio 2 to move on to new challenges, maybe ones you can actually overcome, and the deck isn't stacked against you. His departure comes over a week after audience figures revealed that Radio 2 had fallen from 14.89 million to 14.44 million weekly listeners across the year. So in October, figures revealed Miss Zoe Ball had attracted the fewest listeners to the show in a decade, with 7.9 million tuning in. So again, this isn't reflective of women as a whole, just seeing as they're trying to fill their quotas. This is always what happens. And the worst thing about this is, as I mentioned previously, that there are so many great people suitable for the job, so many people who wouldn't even bring sex into it, so many people who don't care about gender and would just get on with the job in hand, because gender, sex, whatever, doesn't matter in the slightest. Your chromosomes don't matter. It doesn't even matter how many you have. What matters is how good you are at the job. And so by appointing these women and then failing, of course you're playing into the hands of your supposed enemies who would like to suggest that women aren't good at anything and should just stay at home. So what are you playing at? Is this actually a false flag attack? And the BBC are trying to suggest that women can't do anything. Maybe that's the way to go for it. Maybe, actually, that is the way to stop the BBC doing this almost irreversible damage. Is to suggest to them that it is a false flag attack, and the only reason they are doing this is to make the women look bad. Maybe play them at their own game. It's the same as if you want to destroy somebody, you don't say that they're annoying or they're evil and they're pissing you off from what they're doing. No, instead of that, you just say that they're boring, disinteresting, and just meaningless. That whatever they do has absolutely no effect because they are incapable of doing anything worthwhile. And no matter what they do, it doesn't matter because they're just a failure at life. And this is why people might say they get on with them, but they really don't care and they don't like them. This is why they're not invited to parties and they don't hear from anybody on the weekends because, you know, nobody cares. And that's how you destroy someone. So Mr. Carnie, who will leave after this summer, was also at the helm for the ill-fated decision to team up Joe Wiley with Simon Mayo on the station's drive time show in 2018, which listeners said that they lacked chemistry, and Simon Mayo quit the station altogether, because he's seeing where this is headed and decides, oh hell no. So, in defence of Carnie, a BBC insider defended Mr. Carnie's record, saying the schedule, which was introduced a year ago, was bedding him well and pointed at the quarterly increase. They added listening figures always fluctuated. Try and say he's making the best of a bad situation. Yesterday, Mr. Carnie said, after 19 glorious years of BBC Radio 2, it's time to take a leap of faith and move on to new challenges. I'm proud that the network keeps millions of people entertained each day and would like to thank everyone in Wogan House for their dedication and passion, which makes Radio 2 both a very special radio station and a fantastic place to work. So you would think someone who was in it until the end just couldn't handle this political infighting, this dog-eat-dog world of creating problems out of nothing, to use their own words, this toxic environment that makes trying to do anything productive unfeasible, impossible, and futile. And this is, of course, what we will see infect any and every organisation before too long, if it isn't stopped. But I think it will. I think they're eating their own. I think the Swarfs and the Turfs are fighting each other too much. I think the Labour Party is falling apart. I think the Democrats are destroying each other in America as well. I think, and I so hope I'm correct, that the communists, the Marxists, the Leninists, the Trotskyists, all of the regressive left, if you will destroy each other. They will have their purity spirals into obscurity and obscenity, and therefore they will never be able to amass enough numbers or enough support to have any lasting, impactful change beyond where it is at the moment. With people like Ricky Gervais and Lawrence Fox not being dragged as much as you might expect them to be, I think it is about time that we can say it's over. It really is. I think the pendulum is swinging back, and I don't mean we can rest on our laurels this soon, given Johnson has hardly been conservative, the slightest, but nonetheless, I think there's more of a groundswell. They will realise its betrayal, and during the next election campaign, the Overton window will have shifted far enough to allow an actual right-wing party to spring up, and enough people will be sick of the whole so-called political correctness, which is of course incorrect politics. Funny how that works. And there is hope yet. Unfortunately means that you've got to stay dedicated, you've got to stay principled, and that doesn't mean you have to fight, it just means you have to be moral. You have to do what you know is right. You have to be fact-based, evidence-based, and true to yourself. Not dogmatic or authoritarian, but listen to people, allow people to speak, say your thing, and do what you know is right, not just what feels right at the time. In the words of Peterson, Do what is right, not what is expedient.